Malcolm Fun calling in. Hello, anyone there?
Yes, we're here, Malcolm.
Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, Malcolm.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Go ahead, Andrea.
Thanks, Mike. I was just going to say Andrea's on the line, but you did it for me.
And Mike is on the line as well. So, are we waiting for anyone? I heard Bill, I heard Malcolm, Kelly, and PJ.
Yes.
PJ's here.
I think everybody's here.
Kelly, you here?
Yes.
Yes, Kelly's here.
Okay. Nikki, you ready to go?
Whenever you are.
Are we live?
Yes.
Okay. With that, I'm going to call the meeting of the State Board of Elections to order. And for record purposes and the determination of a quorum, I'm going to do a roll call vote. The chair is present. Mr. Hogan, are you present?
Present.
Mr. Fun, are you present?
Present.
Ms. Howells, are you present?
Present.
Mr. Velp, are you present?
Present.
All members are present. A quorum is declared. With that, next item on the agenda, additions to the agenda. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to item number 3, which is the administrator's report. And Nikki, I believe you're going to carry that one.
I am, but I believe Linda has something to say first.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I would like to give a shout out to the local boards of elections and their staff, as well as to the staff at the state board, who are doing a tremendous job. Everything seems to be going smoothly. And we're getting lots of ballots, and I just am really, really proud of everything that they've put together. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Linda. And the chair endorses those compliments as well for everything that we're getting. Well said. Nikki.
Okay, so you, the administrator's report, have just a couple of meetings to go over with you. I think as we've been reporting the last couple of months, we are meeting now 3 times a week. That's down from every single day, internally to discuss issues, resolve tasks, give updates. It's been a productive way for all of us to convene and discuss issues that are issues for multiple divisions and then share an update. So those continue until probably next Monday. We've been continuing our weekly calls with the election directors and their appropriate staff. Same kind of purpose. We share information, they ask questions. We all benefit from hearing the discussion and others' questions. I believe you have at least one meeting summary that was distributed with your meeting materials, and we will share others as they are done. Before each election, we also have a series of calls with LBE Council. So these are the attorneys for the various local boards of elections. And we had our last one, well, we've had 2 in May, one May 12th and one May 26th. And so we just talked with them about changes since the last election, let them know of things that we think might be hot issues for them. And then obviously provide the same kind of forum for them to share ideas and to ask questions. So those are done. We had very good attendance, participation in these calls. We also have calls with the political parties, and we had that on May 15th. And again, just to share information. Of course, there's been a lot of changes this election, so we provided those changes. And I believe the summary of that call is also in your meeting materials. And then yesterday we had a briefing that's organized by MEMA, which is the Maryland Emergency Management Agency. And they, before every election, host at least one, sometimes 2 calls, briefings for us and local election officials. and local emergency management officials. We get a weather briefing. The weather's going to be nice on June 2nd if you're interested. We get a briefing from the Maryland Coordination and Analysis Center, which is a center that is staffed by federal, state, and local individuals who are looking for both cyber and physical threats. And then this time we were joined by someone from the Maryland Department of Health, Dr. Mitchell, who has participated in at least, I think, 2 of our meetings. So we had that yesterday. And then we also take the opportunity to educate the local emergency management officials on key election dates, key facilities, so that they're aware if something happens, that they know how best to support their local election officials. And so we had that yesterday. And then we have one remaining item from the April 28 election. And so Tracy's on the phone, so I will turn that over to Tracy.
Thank you, Nikki. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to give you an update on the post-election automated tabulation audit for the special general election in the 7th Congressional District. This automated audit of ballot images from the 2020 special general election is complete. Before certifying election results, each local board received 4 reports comparing the voting system's results against the results of the independent tabulation audit performed by the automated audit software. These reports showed that 1, the voting system and clear ballots tabulated the same number of ballots, which is cards cast. 2, that any differences between the 2 systems' results were less than 0.5%. And 3, most important, that the voting system accurately tabulated the results. After completion of the canvasses and prior to the state board canvasser certification of the election results, all ballot images were retabulated and the second set of reports were issued. These reports confirmed that the voting system accurately tabulated the ballot images from all canvases. The comparison reports and automated audit results, which were generated before we provided the voting system's results, are posted on SPE's website and the public portal of ballot images, and those results were published last week.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Just one thing. This is Mike. The difference between the 2 systems be less than 0.5%, right?
The threshold is 0.5%.
Okay.
I'd have to double check, but the only difference, I believe
No, you answered the question.
Okay.
The
There were no
0.5%.
differences, I think, that were greater than 0.1 or point. It was very small. If you have specific questions, I can certainly talk about that after the fact.
No, just clarifying the cutoff.
Okay.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
So I'm going to just keep going. We have allowed staff who are busy helping voters get ballots and answer questions to be excused from this meeting. So I apologize. You're going to hear a lot of my voice, but wanted to be able to let them continue to help voters and are available if you need them. But for the administrator's report, I'll just continue. So under the June 2nd election, we have sent out about 3.6 million ballots that were mailed by our mail house vendor. These included ballots for newly registered voters, voters who changed their address or changed their party. The last file we submitted, the last day we submitted a file to see change was on May 20th, and those ballots entered the mail stream on Tuesday. As of the 25th, which I think was Monday or Tuesday, there were 42,000 voters who had requested an electronic ballot, and about 43% of them have accessed their accounts. By that same date, 63% of those voters had chosen to download and print a blank ballot, and the remaining 37 used the ballot marking tool. For voting systems, logic and accuracy testing is the testing that happens before an election that the local boards of elections perform to verify that the voting unit is counting properly. And so that testing is done. And we also audit some of that testing, and our piece of the audit is complete and no issues were identified. The electronic poll book database was distributed to the local boards of election on May 22nd. Once they get that database, they can perform logic and accuracy testing on the poll books. That is done, and now we are auditing that test. We have scheduled a bulk update for May 31st. So those are just going to be changes since the database was created on the 22nd. And then we'll get that bulk update out to the county so that they can update the poll books for next Tuesday.
Nikki, this is Mike.
Yes.
If I could ask, since we're talking about the presidential elections, how are we looking in terms of the November election? What are our time frames, dates, and so on, just in broad steps as we know them right now?
Okay, great. I'd like if Donna could sort of walk through, it's obviously the ballot stuff that happens first. And I'll ask Donna if you could run through a little bit of the ballot timeline and when we start preparing for ballots and when we get into high gear for the general.
Great.
Hello all.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. There will be, as we have promised, there will be some changes needed in order to potentially plan for two types of election. One, our regular in-person election, and the potential for a vote by mail election. And in order to plan for two types of election, many of our systems that support the election, the ballot development system, the voter registration system, poll books, data, all need to potentially be able to accept by precinct level data. And so it will take some planning and some timing. So honestly, we will begin the planning almost immediately after this election. But the high level of preparing the ballot will take place the end of July towards the middle of August. So any decisions with regard to how we will conduct the election really should be in place absolutely as soon as possible. And with our fingers crossed, late June, early July.
Okay. As a comment, if I was making the decisions, I would not make them as early as possible. I would make them as late as possible, given the nature that the circumstances we're in. So I think that it's likely that those decisions will come down to us probably pretty much close to our critical dates, which you're saying is late June, early July. Is that correct?
I would say yes.
Okay. All righty. Does anyone else have any questions about any of this? Okay.
Yes, Kelly.
Yes,
I do have a question. Under Section 4, the 2020 presidential primary, the first paragraph, the last sentence, it says the last day ballots were delivered into the Maryland mail stream was May 26th. I'm curious, was that just a few ballots or was it a large chunk? Do we know who was getting those ballots? I'm just contrasting that with the pre-primary election meeting with the political parties on May 15th. And on the first page of that document, it says that the last day for the vendor to mail ballots is May 21.
So it was a small number, less than 2,000, I think, that were ballots they had to reprint packages. So they delivered them directly to Maryland and got them in the mail stream very quickly.
Okay, so they were for voters around the state?
I don't have a breakdown of where they were, but it was a small number.
Small number. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Anyone else? Okay, Nikki, back to you.
Okay. So voter registration, the voter registration team has just been working around the clock like everyone else to help facilitate this election. They are also doing user acceptance testing for a July deployment of MD voters. There are about 80 issues that are going to be incorporated, enhancements to reports and exports, ERIC, which is the Electronic Registration Information Center enhancements, and redesigning some of the registration screens. In the administrator's report are some numbers from MVA from April, and the non-citizens report that we typically do, we have not done because of the telework mandate. Jared, are you on the line?
Yes, I can do the.
Okay, go ahead.
I can mix it up a little bit and give you a break. The presidential Baltimore City pre-primary 1 report was due on April 28th, the special general election date. This was only due for political committees that are participating in the Baltimore City presidential election. Over 80% of the committees filed timely, and currently we have 92% of the reports in. So we're pleased with those statistics. The Baltimore City presidential Baltimore City pre-primary 2 report was due on May 22nd, and nearly 85% of the committees filed timely. And currently we have over or close to 90% of the reports now filed as well. The next report for the committees participating in this election is the pre-general 1 report due on August 25th. I just wanted to make a note here that committees that fail to file are accumulating late fees daily. The maximum late fee per report is $1,000. And if an authorized candidate committee for a candidate that won the primary election does not file and or pay late fees, they will not receive their certificate of nomination, and it will be deemed a vacancy in nomination prior to the general election. So it's important that all these reports be filed. On June 1st, the semi-annual contribution disclosure statement is due for persons doing public business, which is persons with government contracts of $200,000 or more, and persons who employ a lobbyist and make applicable contributions. As of May 27th, 482 statements were filed, and the maximum late fee for the contribution disclosure statement is $1,000 as well.
Anyone have any questions? I have a couple. This is Mike. Jared, you said 482 statements have been filed. What do you anticipate the total number of statements would look like?
We usually get roughly 680. So we have about 200 still outstanding. Maybe 200 between 200 and 250 statements outstanding.
Okay. And this is your paragraph 3. When a committee is not hasn't sent the reporting in, and it could lead to a vacancy in nomination, does your team send out any notice on that saying, "Hey, by the way, et cetera?
This law just went into effect. This is the first election in which this new penalty went into effect. So yes, we will send them, besides giving them all the regular notices, as it approaches the vacancy or the declination and nomination deadline, we would notify them and saying, if you don't rectify these matters shortly, it will be deemed a vacancy. And then we would notify the correct committee to fill the vacancies.
Okay. Thank you, Jared.
No problem.
Anyone else? No? Okay, I guess back to Nikki then.
Keith is on the line, so I'll turn it over to him for the project management update.
Okie doke.
Thank you, Nikki, and good afternoon, everyone. From the project management office, 3 items or 2 items to cover: inventory management. As been reported in the past, we started the audit for this year on March 1st. And at this time, we have, with everything else that's going on, 63% of the equipment and supplies have been inventoried. And that includes, and this will be corrected in the minutes, it should be 65 ballot drop-off boxes that have been added to the inventory system. Concerning the drop-off boxes, the central warehouse team, Shafiq Satterfield, the transportation contract manager, and the transportation company coordinated the delivery of the ballot drop-off boxes to the locations across the state. Myself, I worked with Shelley Holland, the budget director, to identify the other vote-by-mail equipment and supply items purchased so that they could be entered into the inventory system. As it pertains to the FY 2022 poll book project, we continue with the poll book contract project manager with the planning work, and that includes the developing of the project management documentation required for the planning phase of the project, and developing the request for proposal. That includes requirements gathering for the poll book, and then finally the recruiting of contract project team members that we hope to have on board in July. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I believe that concludes the administrator's report for this meeting. Next item on the agenda is the Assistant Attorney General's report. Andrea?
Good afternoon, everyone. A few updates on the matters listed on your hard copy report. I'm going to go right to number 3. This is the Judicial Watch matter. We filed a status report, a joint status report earlier this week, indicating that the parties had reached an agreement in principle in resolving the remaining issues of the case. Judge Hollander promptly issued an order dismissing the case with leave to reopen if the settlement, for whatever reason, is not consummated. So that case is now at least off the docket. The next matter that for which an update is available is the Hughes matter. This is Hughes versus Alabama Secretary of State. It's filed in federal court in New York. Mr. Hughes is a pro se putative candidate for the Democratic nomination to be president, to run for president, I should say. He filed a complaint alleging that the various rules in most of the states for gaining access to the ballot as a nominee for the Democratic Party were unconstitutional, and sought an order requiring the various states to place him on the ballot. We, along with the other defendants, have moved to dismiss. He filed an amended complaint. We removed to dismiss, and his opposition to that motion to dismiss was due earlier this month, but we have not been served with his filing, nor does the docket reflect that he has filed an opposition. So that's the current status of the case. Next, I'm going to refer you to number 6 of the Public Interest Legal Foundation case. Even though it says no change from the last update, Judge Hollander issued a order requiring the parties to provide a status update in that case. So we will confer with opposing counsel and provide an update to the court. This is a case that has been a subject of a motion to stay pending the resolution of the Judicial Watch matter before the same judge. And so having dismissed the case, she's encouraging the parties to move forward in the Public Interest Legal Foundation case now. The next matter is Chung Soo Yi versus Hogan. Mr. Yi has filed several complaints since last year seeking to invalidate the results of the 2018 gubernatorial election on several grounds, including that the use of religious facilities for polling places was a violation of the constitutional establishment clause of the First Amendment, that the use by Maryland of optical scan units to tabulate ballots was unconstitutional and or unauthorized by federal law, and the identification of candidates by their political parties on the general election ballot was also unauthorized by the Constitution and therefore violated the law. He has filed an amended complaint. We're in the second go-around for the series of actions that he filed. They were dismissed earlier this year from the first filings of his. He has refiled complaints largely seeking the same relief and largely pleading the same violations. We moved to dismiss. He has filed amended complaints that are similar in substance, to the complaints he filed earlier. We have a response to those complaints due next Monday. Next matter is a new matter, is the Maryland Green Party et al. Versus Hogan et al. This is an action that's been brought by the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, and the respective chairman of those parties seeking relief from the requirement under Maryland law that in order to gain recognition, a new party must submit a petition bearing the signatures of 10,000 registered voters in the state. They allege that the COVID situation and the governor's orders dealing with the COVID situation have effectively prevented them from engaging in the petition process and are seeking a reduction of 9,000 signatures, 90% reduction in the amount of signatures required for a petition to be filed, which would be due August 3rd. They're also seeking relief from the requirement under Maryland law that a petition signature match the name of the registered voter that, as it appears on the list of registered voters maintained by the state. They allege that this results in the non-counting of signatures by individuals who sign petitions who can be identified based on the information provided, but for technical reasons, their signature is not counted because it does not match to the letter the requirement of the law. That's a requirement that's been upheld as written by the Court of Appeals, and so the plaintiffs are seeking relief from that. We have an agreement on a briefing schedule. They've also filed a motion for preliminary injunction. We have an agreement on a briefing schedule for that. Our opposition to that is due tomorrow. They will file a reply by next Wednesday, and the court has scheduled a hearing on their motion for preliminary injunction for June 12th. And that is the AAG report.
Thank you, Andrea. Any questions? Andrea, I have one question. On the last item, you said they filed for an injunction. What are they seeking to enjoin?
They're seeking to enjoin enforcement of the requirements that a petition only be approved, that they only be given recognition if their petition has 10,000 signatures on it. They're seeking relief from that. They're asking the court to order that they only need to submit petitions bearing 1,000 signatures on them.
Okay, thank you. With no further questions, we'll move to item number 5 of the agenda, pro forma confirmation of additional voting centers for Baltimore City.
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
I don't see on the agenda the approval of the 2 minutes that were sent to us. Is that a oversight, or are we doing that next meeting?
No, that was an oversight.
Okay, we can add it later. I just noticed it and wanted to bring it up at some point in between.
You know, I was looking at this thing and I was thinking, there's something missing, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And if there's no objection by any of the board members, I will add that to the agenda, and in fact, we'll add it right now. Does anyone object? No objections being heard. The minutes, the May minutes, have been reduced to writing and distributed, and the board has had an opportunity to review them electronically. And is there anyone who has any additions or corrections to the minutes?
This is Nikki. I just have a point of clarification. These are the May 14th board meeting minutes, right?
Yeah, I think it was the 14th, and wasn't it also the...
I believe it's the 13th and the 22nd
Of April.
That's what...
of April.
Got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said May.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. And does anyone have any changes or additions to the minutes, those minutes? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the April minutes as just stated by Mr. Velt and Ms. Charleston. May I have such a motion?
Is this for both sets of minutes, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I think we can just approve them as a body, since there's no one that's asking for any changes or corrections to be made to them.
I move that we approve the April 13th, 2020 and the April 22nd, 2020 minutes as presented by the staff.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Minutes are approved. And thank you, Bill, for bringing that up.
No problem.
Okay, next item. What is labeled as item number 5 on the agenda. Pro forma confirmation of additional voting centers to Baltimore City. This is the exact and identical matter that we addressed in our emergency meeting and disposed of pursuant to our powers relating to the emergency meeting. This is brought up simply to confirm in a regularly scheduled meeting what we have already decided. And therefore, I would simply ask for a motion that the board confirm the actions that were taken in the emergency meeting. I have such a motion.
This is PJ. So moved.
Second.
Second, this is Bill Velt.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. The matter that was decided in the emergency meeting is now confirmed in regularly scheduled meeting. Okay, next item, labeled as number 6, adoption of final regulations. Who will be handling that one?
Hi, this is Tracy. I'm going to be handling this.
I knew you were, but go ahead.
So this was sent to you ahead of time. In front of you, you should have for final adoption regulations that were approved at the January 29th meeting. I have included the memo that I had sent before that meeting and the text of the regulations as they were published. And this is subtitle 16, provisional voting, subtitle 17, early voting, and subtitle 19, same day registration and address changes. These proposed regulations were published in the April 10th edition of the Maryland Register. Public comment period closed May 10th, and no comments were received. So if there is no questions, I would ask that you adopt these regulations.
Questions or comments by any of the board members? Okay. Tracy, Nikki, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do it by each subtitle?
I think you can do them all in one motion. as long as the motion is specified to say that.
That's fine. I didn't know if you needed it differently. The chair then would entertain a motion to approve the adoption of final regulation as to Subtitle 16, Provisional Voting, Subtitle 17, Early Voting, and Subtitle 19, Same-Day Registration Address Changes, as presented to the board and as published for public comment. May I have such a motion?
This is Kelly.
PJ, so move. Second.
Moved and seconded. A whole lot of times. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None. Regulations, subtitle 16, 17, and 19 are approved as submitted.
Thank you.
Next, item 7 on the agenda is disclosure of campaign contributions. Does anyone have anything they want to disclose? I have made a contribution to Republican Campaign Committee, and I can't remember which one exactly it is, and I'll disclose that in detail. I know. In detail in our next meeting. Hearing nothing else, we'll move to item number 8, old business. I don't believe there is any. Does anyone have any old business to raise?
This is PJ. I don't know whether this is the right. I just have a question about canvassing and curing for the June 2nd election.
I think this is as good a time as any to raise it. It is to some degree old business in the sense that we've addressed it before. So, well, now, and I'm not saying we shouldn't address it again. I'm just saying that I think it adequately falls under that. So, go ahead. You carry the ball.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, right now, the canvassing is ongoing, correct?
That's correct.
On ballots that have been returned but lack a signature, are we doing are local boards doing curing right now? As they get them and say, this one has no signature, and we're going to try to reach out to this voter and say, you have to come, make arrangements to come in and sign this.
They are. We've issued procedures several weeks ago for them to reach out to voters and work with the voter to get a signed oath.
Okay, so all the LBs have the same procedures that you sent out, right?
Yes.
Okay, that was it.
Anyone else?
I think we've actually I got a copy of that. I don't know if it was sent out by the state board or if I got it somehow else, but I think that the state issued guidelines for that, the SBE to the LBEs. Isn't that correct, Nikki?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Oh, if you could send me a copy of that, that'd be great.
Sure.
Is this, so if we're bringing up, I have a couple things I guess would come under old business. One, Andrea may be able to answer. There was a question with a group, I believe out of Montgomery County, that there was some emails I was copied on or saw, Andrea, about electronic signatures and what was going to be allowed. And apparently they thought there was a shift in what the board was talking about and what came out of the staff on what could be allowed for signatures. Can you speak to that? Did you address that with that person?
Bill, I know that I've spoken. I and Jared had a phone call with someone from Montgomery County on a ballot issue that he was involved in seeking to petition to place on the November ballot. Maybe that's what you're referring to. We had that conversation, and I think we addressed the questions or concerns that this gentleman had. And that was the last I heard of it with regard to him. Now, if there's something else, it's possible. I think there's a lot swimming around, but I will work with Jared to see if there's something outstanding that we need to address.
Great. I think it had something to do with whether the signature could be electronic or whether you had to print it, sign it, and then scan it back in.
Yes, that was with the gentleman from Montgomery County. It was the same conversation. We confirmed that that was not something that was required under the SBE policy. In other words, the electronic signature can be affixed by the signer to the form. The signer then signs the circulator's affidavit in the same manner electronically, and then that signer can email it back to the sponsor or whoever it was that he was working with to get that signed.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. My next question, if I can, Mr. Chair, the drop boxes that are out there, there became a question, and I just was wondering the answer. It's a quick answer. Are they watertight so that if there's a storm, we don't get water in the drop-off slot?
This is Nikki. So our experience from the 428 election is that they did not. There was rain at some point when those ballot drop-offs were out there. We have received from one local board that question because there was some water inside. And so we're trying to find out, we think it's just dripping down the side and not actually getting to the container. So a couple of the counties have put little flaps on to deflect the water, but we still have that outstanding question from the local board that asked as to whether it was just dripping down the side versus actually getting there's a container inside of the bin that holds the ballots. And we don't have that answer yet as far as.
Okay, thank you. If when you know that, if you would copy me in or just shoot a quick note, because I've gotten the question a dozen times probably, and I don't know the answer, so that's all. I appreciate that.
Sure.
My next question is around the same thing. I know that we don't have video up, or we are slow to get video up and on all of the containers, and they're open 24 hours a day. Do you know if there's going to be any locations that will have no video at all and open 24 hours, or do you know the status of that around the ones around the state? That concerns me.
I don't have the latest, so let me get that for you. It was my understanding that they were, but I will double check that for you and get back to you.
Thank you very much. And my last question, I'm sorry to barrage it all here. I've been getting some people and talking about how on the return ballots, not only is the name and the oath there, but their party affiliation is listed on the outside of the ballot. As you know, I'm an advocate for a 3-envelope system anyway, but is there a way, I know it would be maybe difficult to cure the 3-envelope by the general. Is there a way to cure the party affiliation at least that is being listed on the outside of the envelope with the name?
So I think probably the people that can answer that are not on the call. So we can flag that as something to report back to you on, since it's down the road for the general. Okay,
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Does anyone else have any old or new business to raise?
Mike, I don't have any old or new business, but I would like to give congratulatory to the staff, the workers, the time they've put into this, as well as to my fellow board members. It's been a pleasure working with you during this period of time of, of crisis and handling various situations that have come up. And I know that perhaps everyone is not satisfied with the outcome. Is somebody trying to drown me out? Not satisfied with the outcome of what's taking place. But I think everyone recognizes that we're in difficult times that no one has ever experienced before. And I believe that the board and all of its staff have taken care of everything quite admirably, as well as the local board as well. And I would just like to commend them and those people that have issues with the process. I would just remind them that I'm sure there are many things going on in their life and their circumstances, their work, or whatever the case might be, because of this COVID-19 and trying to resolve them. And I just want to say a shout out to them and thanks for the work that's being done.
Second that motion.
Third.
Thank you, Malcolm. That was nice.
Well done, Malcolm. Well done. There's always time for, well, actually, there's time for anything that a board member wants to raise, but there's certainly always time for telling people they've done a good job. With that, and we should probably add an agenda item of member discussion or something like that. I believe our next item is listed as number 10, scheduling the next meeting. And the next meeting, I believe, would be June 25th, Thursday, June 25th at 2 o'clock, if I'm correct. And how do people feel about that?
Works for me.
Works for me.
Well,
It works for me.
Yeah, that's fine with me too.
Okay. Nikki, any reasons not to do it that day?
Linda, does that work for you?
Yep, sure does. Thank you.
Okay, we're good then. Thank you.
Okay. Next meeting is set for 2 p.m. on Thursday, June the 25th, 2020. All right. Next item is our closed session. I have to switch seats here. Okay. All right, the board will now consider whether to meet in closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice as permitted by section 305, B7 and 8 of the General Provisions article. Meeting in closed session would allow the members of the board to seek and obtain legal advice of board counsel without waiver of the attorney-client privilege and obtain information from staff about pending or potential litigation. Also, to discuss network architecture and security of election network as permitted by section 3305B15 of the General Provisions article. Meeting in closed session allows the members to discuss the security of information systems without introducing additional risk into the process. May I have a motion to meet in closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
aye.
The motion having passed, the board will meet in closed session in accordance with exemptions B, 7, and 8, and 15 of section 3305 of the Open Meetings Act. For the general public, when the board goes into closed session, we will not return back to open session. We have no business after this in open session, so we'll be closing the open session down at this time. And with that, the chair will call a recess in order for the members to move to closed session. And I think maybe in about 5 minutes in closed session. In about 5 minutes, we'll go to closed session. Give everyone a chance to stretch their legs a little bit. And with that, I declare the meeting in recess. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.